Hey BookTube, this is Friday Reads. I'm Jen and I talk about audiobooks, and I usually don't squint. And the reason I'm squinting is a very good reason, because I'm out in the sunshine and I'm going to put these on. I don't think it's a good thing to talk to people when your eyes are covered by glasses, but it's kind of unavoidable at this point. So, Friday Reads, I am back. Yesterday did a live show with Sophie at All Things Equilateral and Lisa at Books and Smiles. We had a great time, and what we were doing was wrapping up the Chick Lit-a-thon, which is something that Sophie came up with. Okay, having said all that, the books. So I picked up from Lukov with Love. This is by Mariana Zapata and narrated by Callie, Dalton, and Teddy Hamilton. And I got a rave about this narration. Callie Dalton does all of Mariana Zapata's books. She is Shannon McManus, and so fantastic. She always gets it right. She gets all the characterizations right. They always line up with the personalities of the people in the book, the characters in the book. The emotion is spot on. She's just amazing. I always enjoy her narration, always. And the thing about this book that they did is something that I wish audiobook publishers would do this more often. Anytime that the character of Ivan was speaking dialogue, it was Teddy Hamilton's voice. It gave the book so much dimension, so much more than what you would normally get with a book like this. So while it wasn't told from two different perspectives, you still kind of got that. It was just delightful. Just delightful. I can't rave enough about it. For that reason, I really hope that I get to hear more books that are done that way. Okay, the story. The story is all about the figure skating world. You know, it's a pretty snooty business in that there are a lot of politics involved, as well as your proficiency as a skater. So you can be a fantastic skater, but not be very politically correct and not win much. And so Jasmine, the main character, is a figure skater, and Ivan is her nemesis. She has stopped competing for a little while because she hasn't won anything, and she feels like she's a pair skater, and her partner kind of dumped her, almost like through a text. And she kind of just backed off and thought, I have sacrificed so many things in my life. My family has sacrificed so many things in their lives that I'm not going to keep going. I need to have a life. I need to, you know, build those relationships back up again. Ivan is from a wealthy family. His family owns the rink where they all practice, and his younger sister is Jasmine's best friend. And she said something to him one time, and it set off an antagonistic relationship because Jasmine is a person who didn't win very much because she spoke her mind so freely. So the situation arises that Ivan needs a new partner. He is also a pair skater, has had a very successful pair skating career, also a very successful solo career. So he needs a partner, he wants her, she can't figure out why, and so it is the story of how their relationship evolves. And of course, you know, it's classic Mariana Zapata in that it's a slow burn, slow start to the romance. And you know it's gonna be a romance, but it takes a while to get there. And so many things come out in this book, but in the end, it is a fantastic book and a wonderful inside view of the figure skating world. And you know, I'm gonna rave till the end of time about Mariana Zapata in general, and this book was no exception. I gave it 4.5 stars. I didn't give it 5 because Jasmine has quite a language with which she expresses herself. It is very colorful, but it got to be kind of gratuitous. I mean, it was every other word, and I just got tired of that. You know, it's not that I have anything against language in, you know, and offensive language to some people. That doesn't offend me, but it does start to offend me when it gets to be every other word. It's like, can you speak English? Can you speak English with different adjectives? So, you know, that was the only thing I found wrong with it. So, Okay, moving on. I read He Said, She Said by Erin Callie. This is narrated by Helen Johns and Jonathan Broadbent. These are two British narrators that I had not heard before, but I had zero problems with because they enabled me to completely immerse myself in the story. And I just believe that they embodied these characters so well. Sometimes I have problems with British narrators sounding like British broadcasters. I think that's a style of narration with regard to British narrators, but they didn't do that, and I appreciated so much that that wasn't the style that they went with. So, high marks on the narration. Now the story is a mystery suspense thriller, kind of. I read this because Lisa, who is my good friend Lisa at Books and Smiles, said, I want you to do this live show with me for the Deadly Divas Goodreads group. I will put a link to that below. If you like suspense and psychological thrillers and thrillers in general, you will want to be a part of this group because they read some amazing books. This was not an amazing book. But to be fair, most of the people that read this book didn't like it. It is about a married couple who are eclipse chasers. By that I mean that they travel the globe getting pictures of solar eclipses, and they know all about them. So it's the story of them and being at a festival, which is often what's happening at where these events are occurring. And she walks in on a rape, and she's pretty clear that it's a rape. It's pretty clear that it's a rape. It's a little too descriptive for my taste, you know, with the whole bodily fluids kind of thing. But it's the story of this woman who was raped and how she inserts herself into these people's lives and what happens from there. It gets really convoluted and really kind of clever, but it's set against this whole backdrop of an eclipse. And I think, okay, that would be a great story if what it was about was kind of a study of a family over years or a marriage over years. But this whole setting of the eclipse thing didn't work for the mystery that this book was. Had it just been a straight up mystery, it would have been much better. You know, authors are going to do what they're going to do, but I didn't like it. I didn't like the characters. I didn't really like any of the characters. I sure didn't agree with what they did. I didn't like the ending. A lot of people did like the ending. They didn't like the book, but they liked the ending. They thought it redeemed it, and I wasn't too sure about that. So I ended up giving it 1.5 stars. I did round it up to 2 simply because I don't read that genre, and I probably am not the best judge of it, but I did not like it. I finally did get around to A Court of Frost and Starlight, which is A Court of Thorns and Roses, book 3.1. It is a novella that Sarah J. Maas has written in that series, and it was narrated by Amanda Lee Cobb. Amanda Lee Cobb is a change of narrators. These were previously all done by Jennifer Ikeda, and I love Jennifer Ikeda. I think she is one of the most talented voice actors I've ever heard. And Amanda Lee Cobb, while she was excellent, I really didn't notice any kind of a stark difference in the narration, but some people have. So I have to kind of throw that out there. I liked Amanda Lee Cobb. I thought she did a great job with the narration. Now this was told from several points of view, and while I liked that, Amanda Lee Cobb did all of them. And I think that the story would have been much better served had it been different people doing the voices, like a guy doing the voice of Reese. So, you know, that costs money. It costs money to pay a lot of narrators rather than one. I'm sure that had something to do with it. So while Amanda Lee Cobb was stellar, she was very, very, very good in her narration, I still think that some changes to the narration would have made it even better. This is not YA fantasy. This is decidedly new adult fantasy. And if you go in thinking it's young adult, you are going to be disappointed because you're going to say, what the heck is this stuff doing in this book? It's not YA. It's not YA material. It's new adult. And this novella is very new adult. Think new adult romance. You know, they get graphic sometimes, and this one does. And it fits the storyline. It's done very well, but it's in there. So if you think this is YA, you're going to be shocked. You're going to be disappointed, and you're going to be mad. So please remember that it is new adult going in. This picks up where the last book left off, and picks up, you know, they're rebuilding the whole kingdom, and there are several points of view, like I said, and it sets up a new companion series. So it did a great job of that. It was interesting. I really enjoyed the whole book, really, to be honest. It was short. It was only about 3 hours long, and so for what it was, I thought it was excellent. I liked it a lot. I gave it 4 stars because I love that series. That first book I wasn't too sure about, and then the second book completely turned me around. The third book was not as good as the second, but still good. I can highly recommend the series. I think it's a good one, especially for fantasy and the Fae. You know, I'm not a big fan of the Fae, but in my fantasy, but I like my fantasy to be more leaning towards sci-fi, but yeah, for whatever. Okay, the last book I read was The Atonement Child by Francine Rivers, and while this is on audio, I didn't read it on audio because the audiobook was done probably 10-15 years ago, before audiobooks and the narration for them really began to evolve into more voice acting. And this book is being read to you, and I didn't like that at all. I've gotten too spoiled, I think, with all the fantastic narrators that I've heard. So I decided I would read it on my iPad. I wanted to read it for the Chick Lit-a-thon, and this is Christian fiction. This is very Christian fiction. Now, I don't have a problem with that because I'm a pastor's wife. This is the world in which I live. This book was written in a language that I understand. My husband and I call it Christianese. It's really appropriate because it's about a girl who is attending a Bible college. So initially it's set there. She's from the Bay Area. This Bible college is in Illinois, so it's in the Bible Belt. And she is raped one evening and then finds out she's pregnant. So it's all about how she's going to handle that. This book is very intensive in its look at abortion and the abortion issue, but it's not an anti-abortion book. It really doesn't deal with the fundamental issues of abortion from the pro-life standpoint, I think. Most of these people are pro-life. They're not pro-choice, they're pro-life. But they have their limitations. And so the interesting thing I found about this story was that I went to Bible college, and I know these people. I know these characters. I know the legalism. I know the hypocrisy. I know the love, the unconditional love. One of the lines in the book that really struck me was it was spoken by one of the characters that I knew was probably ultimately going to be the love interest, and I was right. But he says, how can we expect to evangelize and bring Christ to people when we are shooting our own wounded? Talk about hypocrisy, you know. This main character has to think about and deal with the idea that maybe it is her fault, when clearly it's not. Everyone around her is telling her it's not. But the way her life is falling apart, she has a tendency to feel like it was her fault. Her immediate people around her are not on her side, really. And there's a lot of hypocrisy that happens there. Now, I will say that because there is so much prayer in this book, she's questioning God. She's talking to God. She's alternately saying, why did this happen to me? And what did I do to deserve this? And then saying, you are bringing beauty out of this tragedy. And also the people around her are struggling with what's happened to her, how to best love her through this tragedy. So it really goes all the way around in looking at the situation within the Christian community, and I appreciated that so much. I think this book, for what it is excellent. I didn't give it a 5-star rating. I gave it 3 to 3.5. But that was just because I don't think that Rivers She left too many loose ends. I don't think she took the characters as far as she could have. The ending is very neat. It's very, you know, tied up with a bow, as it were. And she didn't, I would have preferred an epilogue or some kind of a way of letting us know how this ended up ultimately. It's hard to say that this is an excellent book, but it is an excellent book. It's hard to say that because of what I know about how secular people view the Christian community. So if you're not a Christian, you might read this book and hate it. You might feel that it's very preachy. I don't think it is. I think if you go into it knowing that this is a situation where this character is trying to work through what has happened to her, the consequences of what has happened to her, and the repercussions throughout her family, the way it's a drop in the water and the ripple effect. I think if you go in viewing that, even if you are pro-choice, I think you will be able to appreciate the struggle that this girl goes through, and even the views of those around her. So, yeah, there's that. If you are a Christian, you're probably going to love this book. So, yeah, those were all the books I read last week. I would love to know what your thoughts are on any of these books. In general, what I've told you about them, just if you haven't read them, or if you have read them, what you thought of them. This next week, I am listening to Book 8 in the Chronicles of St. Mary's. It is called And the Rest is History, and it is by Jodi Taylor. It's narrated on audio by Zara, Ramm, and I love this series so much. It's all about time travel, except don't call it that because the St. Mary's Institute would be very upset with you if you did. What they do is historical research. Essentially, they go back in time and look at various historical events so that they can get the straight story. So the way that Jodi Taylor embellishes on that is very entertaining, and I always love it. So I'm listening to that. I'm also listening to The Consequence of Revenge, which is by Rachel Van Dyken, and it is narrated by Nick Podehl and Amy McFadden, and it is unbelievably hilarious. So not that far into it, but I had to put it down for a little while and then pick up something different. I'm also reading Every Little Thing, which is book 1 in the Butler, Vermont series by Marie Force. I'm reading that on my iPad because I don't generally like her narrators. But the thing about that is that it is a continuation of her Green Mountain series. She had a thing with the publisher. I'm not sure what it was, but she couldn't keep going with the Green Mountain series, so she started a new series that's basically a continuation of it. So I had forgotten how racy her books are. So I'm skipping some. Let's just put it that way. And I think that's it. I think that's all the books I'm reading. It's odd for me to have more than one thing going on audio at a time, but oh well. So I am enjoying this sunshine. It is so nice. I love summer. I love June because it's my birthday month. And I also love the fact that it is audiobook month. So if you are an audiobook listener, I hope you do a lot of that this month. Just this past week, the Audies happened, which are kind of the Oscars of the audiobook world. So that was exciting. A lot of great people were recognized and won awards. So anyway, get yourself an audiobook. Yeah, if you need a recommendation, just ask me, but make sure you tell me the genre and what you like so that I give you a good one. And I think that's it for now for me. So I will see you next time. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching.